Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. And the topic of today's webinar will be simple fundraising. And we've had a similar webinar last year on this time. You can find it on our YouTube channel. But we decided to take a little bit different approach today. Yes, we will, take a look at the basics, including the ad grants, including the strategies of how to combine ad grants with other channels. But we'll also talk about new things that Google's added or enabled in the grants accounts recently. There were quite a few of those in 2025, so we'll take a look at that. You can use many of those things in your fundraising campaigns as well. And we'll also take a look at other channels. So, you know, platforms that we've seen working well in fundraising campaigns outside of Google Ads. We'll take a look at all of this today. We have about 60 minutes, so we have quite a few things to cover. Um, Before we start, a few technical things. In the right-hand side, the first icon on the very top is a little. It looks like a little chat window. So if you click that, that is a chat window, surprisingly, and you can ask any questions or comments in there. Towards the end of the webinar, hopefully we'll have some time left, and then we can take a look at those questions. I'm happy to answer them for you. And also, we are recording this webinar, and the recording will be available to all of you. We'll send you the link in upcoming days, and then also within the next few days, we'll upload this recording to our YouTube channel. It will be available there for free, so you can just look back and look at any part that you've liked. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. All right, let's get started. So what are we gonna cover today? We'll take a look at the ad grants. Obviously, that's the program that the majority of our clients use. That's the baseline. And then we'll take a look at how to combine ad grants with other channels to create a comprehensive fundraising strategy. Then I'll talk about the news, things that were added into Google Ads or other channels you can use. And then there's a case study. So towards the end, I would like to walk you through a fundraising campaign that we ran for one of our clients recently. Here's my short intro. Some of you might already know me. For those of you who do not know me yet, here's my intro. I'm Peter Sima. I'm a founder and consultant at EvoX Digital. And besides that, I'm also a Google trainer for nonprofits. So I also work with Google Grants team, and we run academies, events, workshops, webinars like this for nonprofits where we teach them how to get the grant, how to use it efficiently. And I've been working in the research and marketing space since about 2010, and I've been focusing on grants accounts since 2013. All right, here are a few quick facts about fundraising. Again, for those of you who run fundraising campaigns repeatedly, this might be just a repetition, but some of them, to me at least, they were quite surprising the first time I saw them. And I think these numbers are from last year when 31% of all annual giving happened in December, right? It's obviously late October, so you might think, all right, there's still plenty of time before December. Well, yes, that's true, but also the point I want to make today is that you need to prepare ahead of time, right? If you want to execute this properly, there is certain time needed for the preparation, and October is the best time of year to start, so that in December, when the annual giving happens, you're out there and people can find you. And out of that, 12% of all giving happen on the last 3 days of a year. Well, why that is, at least in the US, charitable donations are a tax deductible item. So typically people, during those last few days of a year, they are like, okay, what can I do with my taxes last year? All right, let's donate, let's support somebody I like. Right. So these last 3 days are very important. And the amount donated on Giving Tuesday, on this one single day, which is the prime day for fundraising, $511 million is a figure for the US, right? And it grows every month. Sorry, not every month, obviously every year. All right. Ad grants. Again, for some of you, this might be just a repetition, so I'll just quickly recap some of the key facts here. Google Ad Grants is obviously, as the name suggests, a grant program from Google where Google gives you or any nonprofit in more than 50 countries. Google gives them a media budget of $10,000. That's a standard version of the grant. There is an extended version where Google gives you up to $40,000 and is available to ad grantees who applied prior to 2018. So this Ad Grants Pro program has been available until 2018. It's no longer open to new applicants, but those of I mean those nonprofits that got in before 2018, they still use this. And you can use it to promote your nonprofit within the Google search results. You can only run search campaigns, so you cannot do any banners, you cannot do any video. And there's a set of compliance requirements, and these compliance requirements are related to how the campaigns are structured, and also there's a minimum performance in terms of a minimum CTR, minimum number of conversions, and things like that. But assuming your nonprofit meets these requirements, you keep getting the grant on an ongoing basis. That's how it works. And this is what the ad looks like, right? So we're talking about search ads that appear within the Google search results. This is an example from one of the galleries that use Google Ad Grants. All right, and what are the pros and what are the cons, right? So obviously the biggest advantage of Google Ad Grants is the fact that the grant is there, the budget is provided free of charge, right? So you do not need to pay any advertising budget. That's obviously the single biggest advantage. Um, and it can be a good source of new visits and new conversions, right? So with Google Ad Grants, you can go after all those keywords that you do not rank well organically, right? So you might do some SEO activities, you try to rank well for certain keywords, and yes, you might be successful partially. So for some of these keywords, you know your website might appear up there in the Google search results, which is great. But typically, you're not able to get there for all those keywords related to your programs. So you can take these keywords, you can use them within Google Ad Grants, and then you can show ads, and that way you will increase your coverage, right? So that's obviously the very good thing about these campaigns. And it can also be a stable source of traffic. It takes about 2 to 3 months to ramp Ad Grants campaigns up, but once you do so, once you get a steady stream of data, and once you accumulate history, build up your quality scores and history, then this can work fairly well, and you can obviously get traffic, during this holiday and or fundraising period. But obviously, you can run evergreen campaigns all year long. And it's a good space for experimenting, right? Because you don't pay the budget, you can afford to experiment. You can test different keywords, you can test different bidding strategies, you can test different ad copies, and you're not risking much. You're not paying out of your pocket. So if it's not 100% efficient right away, it's okay. You can collect these learnings, and then you can essentially advance your strategy as you go. And also, if you currently run campaigns on commercial Google Ads or perhaps social media platforms or anything else, um, you can very likely take parts of those campaigns and you can move them into the Ad Grants environment, which saves you budget, right? So it's not so, part of those savings come from the fact that you can experiment. Another part comes from the fact that you can move some of your existing marketing campaigns into Ad Grants, thereby you will not need to pay for them. Well, what are the downs or what are the cons here? Ad grants are not the same thing like commercial Google ads, right? Google gives preference to commercial advertisers, obviously, because they pay to Google. Google shows their ads more prominently, right? So typically on the top of Google search results, you have commercial ads. Underneath them, you have ad grants ads. Obviously, if you go after very competitive keywords, which many of the fundraising keywords are quite competitive, as you can imagine, um, it might be difficult to reach those top positions just with ad grants. And because of that, it might be a good idea to supplement your ad grants campaigns with commercial campaigns targeted at those most competitive keywords. And also the ad formats are limited in the ad grants accounts. You can only run search campaigns. You cannot run, banners or videos. And there are all those compliance requirements that you need to be compliant with. All right. So that was Google Ad Grants. Very quickly, we have tons of articles and even separate webinars just on Google Ad Grants. So if you don't know enough about Google Ad Grants, my recommendation is to go in there, take a look, and they will give you decent understanding. Now, the fundraising strategy. As I've already mentioned, Google AdGrants is not enough to reach those top positions. And also, you can run display, you can run videos, and those formats are essential for a successful fundraising campaign. So, how to create a compelling fundraising strategy? Well, we typically use this procedure, right? So well, if you don't have an AdGrants account, obviously the first step is to get approved for AdGrants, right? So you need to submit an application, first get approved for Google for nonprofits, and then from within Google nonprofits, you can activate Google AdGrants, right? So the first step is to even have a Google AdGrants account. And then you create a strategy. And again, on next slides, I'll talk about what these steps are. Then you should create content or landing pages, right? Uh, Well, the campaign itself is part of the success, but then all it does is that it directs people to your website, and you should have certain um, you should have landing pages, you should have content that is optimized for the same keywords like the campaigns. And also these landing pages should be responsive, they should look good on cell phones because majority of traffic comes from mobile devices these days. These landing pages should include call to action elements, etc., etc. Right? So there should be certain quality, and people should find what they're looking for. They should find it quickly. They should find it in a compelling way, and they should be able to convert straight from those landing pages. Obviously, it is a whole separate topic. We're planning on having a webinar just about the landing page design. When that happens, we'll let you know, and then we'll take a look at it in more detail. After you have content, after you have landing pages, you need to create campaign assets, right? So these are obviously keywords, but also these are text ads, these are display ads, these are my videos, depending on what kind of campaign you decide to run. Then you need to configure analytics, right? You need to be able to track what people do on these pages, which means that you need to implement Google Analytics. Typically, that's what we use. And within Google Analytics, you need to configure conversions, right? So if people click on the donation button, send this information into Google Analytics. If people actually make the donation, again, send this information into Google Analytics. These are called conversion events. They need to be configured within Google Analytics. After you do that, then you can go live. And as you progress, as you collect data, you'll see which elements, which platforms, which channels work better, and then you can adjust budgets and bids and targeting accordingly. I know it might sound like a lot, but it's manageable, and I will discuss that now. It's important to understand that if you want to bring people all the way from not knowing your organization to um, donating to your organization, this is not a straightforward process. This doesn't happen on their first visit, right? It doesn't work in a way that people click on the ad, land on the page, and donate right away. It's not gonna happen. Typically, there are three stages that lead towards that conversion. The first stage is an educational stage where people just um, search for things related to your programs. In this example, it might be keyword like wildlife in Galapagos, right? People are interested in wildlife in Galapagos, right? You want to introduce your organization to these people because this organization does wildlife protection programs in the island of Galapagos, right? So you want to bring them, you want to get them familiar with your website content. As they land on your page, what you want is to create a relationship with them, which could be newsletter subscription, which could be contact initiation, which could be following you on social media, etc. So you want to turn these people from first-time visitors into regular visitors, into people who have some sort of relationship, some sort of connection to your organization. And then once you have audiences like this, when the time comes, which could be the Giving Tuesday, which could be the holiday period, last few days of a year, etc. Then you can reach out to these audiences, perhaps via retargeting campaigns or emails or social media campaigns, and then you can try to push them towards that monetary donation. And because they already know you, and because they know that you do good job, then they can actually turn into financial donors. And again, we this slide, I've already explained this in last year's fundraising webinar. So if you want to know this in detail, my recommendation is to go there and take a look at that. Just very quickly now, you can see those three stages here. The first stage, the educational stage, is the right one. The middle one is the phase when you create the relationship, and then the third, the blue phase, that's the phase when you actually turn people into donors. And you can see there are different channels recommended at different stage of the journey. Initially, in those first two stages, Google AdGrants, as you can see, is a highly valuable uh, channel. But AdGrants is not so valuable when turning people from that middle phase into the last phase, because in Google AdGrants accounts, you cannot do retargeting. You cannot reach out to them repeatedly. You cannot remind them of your existence, etc. To do that, you need to use retargeting, which is only available in commercial Google Ads accounts. Right. Besides that, you can also use email, direct mail, or social media, etc. But when we just talk about the Google environment, uh, at minimum, you should use ad grants plus retargeting campaign in the commercial account if you want to actually see people coming all the way from not knowing you into supporting you financially. Doing just ad grants will very likely not be enough to move them all the way down the funnel. Right? So that's the key message here. Over here, I'm just showing you the different types of creatives that we use when running fundraising campaigns on Google Ads. There are three types of creatives that we typically create. The first one is the one that we use on those last days of a year, right? And that's the tax aspect. That's when we say, you can still reduce your taxes, or things like that. These donations are completely tax deductible, right? People actually search for keywords like that, so you want to have them placed prominently in the ads and also on the landing page. These are ideal ad copies to run on those last few days of a year. Then we also recommend running event-based ads, right? So on days like Giving Tuesday or Christmas Day, etc., right? You can have custom ads, and it tends to increase the click-through rate and also conversion rate. And then there are retargeting ads, and those again need to be worded a little bit differently, because with retargeting ads, you are reaching people who already know who you are. So you can be more direct, and you can tell them, please come back, or donations are doubled now. This is a good opportunity to come back and donate, things like that. All right. And here's what I mentioned before, and this is an actual campaign performance of one of our clients. And you can distinctly see that there are peaks in terms of clicks, and the clicks are that's the blue line, and then the right line is conversion value. And you can see that around Thanksgiving and Giving Tuesday, that's when the click volume goes up. That's when the searches for keywords related to fundraising and these events, that's when it goes up. But donation values are not very high yet. We typically see that clicks and donation values go significantly up during Christmas, so those last few days before Christmas. That's when it really makes sense to push hard with these types of campaigns. And then there's New Year, and you can see the click volume isn't great around this time, but the conversion volume is actually the highest, right? And those are the last minute, um, you know, how will we call them? Last minute donors, if you will, right? So my point here is, I mean, in this particular case, the campaigns were launched in mid-November, which is quite late, but it's still okay to, be able to be there during those key events. What I have to mention here is that ad grants campaigns take some time to ramp up. Commercial campaigns ramp up much, much, faster. So with commercial campaigns, even if you launch it 2 days before Thanksgiving, you can still get decent results probably. Yes, we'll not have enough data. So initially we'll need to just, hope for the best in a sense. And then after a few days, after we see the real data, then we can optimize. So ideally we'll even start commercial campaigns a little bit earlier. But with ad grants campaigns, they absolutely need to run for at least few weeks before those days, because it really takes some time for these to ramp up. All right. And here's a sample strategy, right? So when we think about fundraising strategy, we start off by defining objectives. And again, we are an agency. We work with clients, so we typically ask our clients, all right, what you want to actually achieve by this. Obviously, the primary goal typically is donation conversions, right? That's obvious. well, how we track them, we typically use Google Analytics to track donations. But that should not be it. There should be other goals as well. In this case, the secondary goal could be, for instance, the number of website visits, right? They want to drive traffic to their um, fundraising websites because that helps them build out their retargeting audiences. So that's valuable as well. And then the tertiary goal could be, for instance, the quality of these visits, right? So how long they stay, how many pages they view, what's the bounce rate like, etc. Right? So this should be the first step. Define what are the goals. The second step of the strategy definition should be to define target groups. So who you want to go after. In this case, we're trying to go after monetary donors, right? So and those are, again, coming back to my example with this organization called Galapagos. In their case, these could be people interested in the island of Galapagos, or people, eco-thinking people who are likely to support such projects, etc. Right? So those could be the groups of the monetary donors, and then all the keywords, all the ad copies should be tailored to this group. The second group for them could be animal lovers, right? Because you can adopt animals. You know, they accept financial donations, but also donations in terms of animal donations, right? So that's another big group for them. And then the third one could be gift shoppers. Um, Obviously, gift shoppers is an audience that everybody can go after. There's a substantial amount of searches around gift shopping, and in their case, they have a gift, right? So they basically say, give a gift of animal adoption to somebody, right? So this could be an original gift, and they want to also go after people who do gift shopping but know nothing about Galapagos, right? So this is very important. Think about the audiences that you want to show your ads to. And then think about a budget, right? In their case, they had an Grants account, but they wanted to add a commercial Google search campaign component to it because they wanted to go after some of those keywords that are very competitive. Plus, they wanted to run a banner and video campaign. So yes, Google Search, Google Display, and then retargeting. Retargeting is very important. The budget doesn't have to be so big because retargeting ads only serve to people who were on the website before. So even with a fairly small budget, you can get decent return on your investment, right? So that's what they decided on doing. And then obviously there's management costs. That's our part. So if you decide to have us manage this campaign for you, we'll give you an estimate and we'll tell you, exactly, okay, these are the tasks that we need to complete, and this is how much time we'll need to do that. All right. So after you think about the budget, then you should think about marketing channels, right? So yes, we've talked about it. Google Ads should be the baseline. So yes, that's a must. And then what are the extra components to push those people down the funnel towards that monetary donation? The classical ones are display campaigns and retargeting campaigns. And again, in their case, they also use commercial Google search. Obviously, there are also options outside of the Google universe, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But if we talk about Google's product, this is from our experience, this is the winning combination, right? So, ad grants, um, taking those most competitive keywords into commercial account and running search ads on them, then having a display campaign or video campaign if you have video assets that will essentially serve as a brand awareness campaign. And then you should have a retargeting component to it, which will bring those people back. And especially during those key days, that's when you bump up the budget in the retargeting campaign, because that's when you want to really be aggressive. That's when these people are likely to convert. All right. And then, after you think about all these things, then what we do is that we list out our tasks. Some of them are our tasks, some of them are clients' tasks. But in this particular case, again, it all started with the strategy proposal. So we put all this into a strategy proposal. The client looked at it, gave us their feedback. And after we had an agreement on that, then we needed access. They had an existing commercial account, so we just asked them to give us access there. They didn't have retargeting audiences, so we went in and we created these audiences within their Google Analytics account, and then we started working on the ad copies. Right, so for all those different target groups, we had to create new audiences, or not just audience, but also ads. the client supplied some of the visual assets, and so we then combined the text with the visual assets, and we created the ads. And after the client approved these ads, then they had existing landing pages that were decent. They just didn't have they just weren't optimized for the main keywords, right? So after we did the keyword research, we supplied the keywords, and the client implemented the keywords on their landing pages, right? If you don't have the landing pages, then yes, if you know that, all right, these are the three top target groups, each one will probably need a separate landing page. The design can be the same, but at least in terms of wording and headlines, you should probably have different landing pages for different audiences. And then conversion tracking. So they had Google Analytics in place. We just went in, we created a bunch of new events, we tested it, synced it up with Google Ads and our reporting platform to make sure that everything can be tracked correctly. New ads, new campaigns, yes, obviously. New reports. If you use a new account, there needs to be a new or there should be a new Google Orca Studio report for each account, right? So if you create a new account, then we also recommend setting up a new reporting system for that. And afterwards, we launched campaigns, and we obviously this was a 2-month long campaign. So every month we would then, obviously we had sync up calls in the meantime, but every month we would sort of sum it up and write up a commentary on how the campaigns did in the previous month. All right. So that was the strategy part. Again, a lot of this is repetition. So for those of you who saw our last year's webinar, this was to a large extent just a repetition. Now here comes the new part. Now I would like to talk about what we call automated campaigns, and these are essentially newer campaign types available within Google Ads, but we see a lot of success with them, and we recommend using them within your fundraising campaigns. One of those types is called dynamic search ads. This one has been around for a while, but especially for those of you who have substantial amount of website content, this can be a good format, because a major problem in Grants accounts is to ramp them up, right? Because of what I said, because of the preferential placement of commercial advertisers, it might be difficult to use significant part of the grant. With dynamic search ads, they're unique because you do not manually enter the keywords. Instead, you just type in the domain, which is obviously your domain, and then Google essentially extracts the keywords from all pages within your domain, right? At least those pages that are actually indexed with Google. And Google extracts those keywords, and Google uses them for targeting, right? You need to supply parts of the ads, description lines, but the headlines are also generated automatically by Google. And just Google extracts the information again from the landing page. It creates the headlines, description lines are provided by you. The keywords used for targeting are again taken automatically from your page, and that way Google tries to match the ads to the actual search intent of that particular user. And that's very advantageous in Google Ads environment because it gives you a larger exposure. It broadens up your targeting. And so all those keywords you do not have manually included in any search campaign, but you might have them somewhere on your page. With this campaign type, they can be also used for targeting, right? So if you coming back to those conversion stages, in the first stage, the educational stage, if you have a lot of content on your website, a lot of blog articles, etc., all these keywords can create a very um, you know decent baseline, and then these campaigns can extract all these keywords. You can use them for targeting, and you can at scale educate people of your programs, of your mission, right? So we definitely recommend using this in Google Ads accounts. And again, they are ideal for those well-developed websites with large inventory. Yes, I've already mentioned that they can fill in the gaps. So no matter how well you structure campaigns, no matter how many keywords you include in your search campaigns, there will be some that you'll miss. And this campaign can actually fill in these gaps. Headlines are generated automatically. I've already mentioned that as well. Um, what else? Yeah, if obviously most of you do not have time to create new campaigns, new ad groups every time you create a new article, every time you post something new to the website. You do the setup once and then you let it run. And if you add content on a continuous basis, this can be an easy way for you to catch up and to make sure that even those new content pieces are covered and are being promoted within your Google Ads account. Um, our tips: use this format in AdGrants campaigns or AdGrants accounts. Use high budgets or don't limit these campaigns. If you set a small budget of $50 or so a day, because of its broad reach, they can quickly become limited by budget. Right, so don't make this mistake. Use high budgets right away. And after a while, you'll hopefully have enough data, and you can compare the performance of these campaigns versus your standard search campaigns. If you see that they're, you know, not up to par, then you can obviously lower the budget and give more space to those traditional campaigns. But typically, we see them performing quite well. So we typically use high budgets with them. Um, use maximize conversions bidding strategy. That typically is the winning strategy in Google Ads accounts. That's the strategy that really maximizes the performance of this campaign. The next one is an important point. Because you do not manually set up the keywords, I imagine a situation where you have, for instance, a partner website. You might have a website where you mention your partners. Um, this page might also be indexed and used by this dynamic search campaign, and thereby, if somebody searches for the brand name of your partner, they can see an ad with that name even in inserted in the headline. Obviously, you don't want this to happen. So our recommendation is to look at the search terms uh, on a regular basis, monitor what kind of keywords are being triggered in this campaign, and if you see something that's not very relevant, make sure to negative match it, which basically means that Google will not serve ads for that keyword anymore. What else? Use extensions. This is not just a case here. This is also valid for any search campaigns. The more extensions you use, the more prominent and the more visually attractive the ads are. The next new campaign format within Google AdGrants accounts is called Performance Max. Performance Max is a format that, if you run Performance Max in a commercial account, um, it can serve ads within all of these platforms that you see on the pictures: YouTube, Display, Search, Discover, Gmail, and Maps. In Google AdGrants accounts, as of now, the ads are only served within Google Search and Google Maps. Still, this is the only ad format available to ad grantees that serve ads outside of the Google Search network, right? So it's quite powerful. It's only been around for a few months. We are planning on writing an article where we summarize our experience with this campaign so far, but we see decent results. Again, this is a campaign format which is highly automated. You just give it signals, and these signals you can include keywords, but you can also include um, demographic information or retargeting audience, etc. And then Google targets based on these signals. But again, it goes broadly after these audiences. The ads are, I mean, you can, in this campaign format, you can manually type in the ads. You can also include videos, pictures, logos, etc. And Google uses all these different elements to create ad combinations that are being clicked the most, right? Google does testing at scale, targeting is highly automated, and because the placements are also within Google Maps, again, you can get decent traction. So our recommendation is to use this, test it. Again, use high budgets, high bids, give it a breathing space, so to say. Use as many assets as possible, as many headlines, as many description lines, also visual elements, and use retargeting audiences, right? If you once you create these retargeting audiences within Google Analytics, use it here, because then use it as a signal, and then this Performance Max campaign can go after people similar to people who were on your website before, and these are typically people of the highest possible quality. All right, the next sort of new thing within Grants account. It's called AI Max. This is not a campaign. It's not a new campaign format. It's sort of an expansion that's available to standard search campaigns. So if you go into settings of any search campaign, you'll see something like this. You'll see this little toggle which says optimize your campaigns with AI Max. It's still in beta version, by the way. You can turn it on. And when you turn it on, here's the definition from Google. What happens is that the targeting and creative enhancements are being used in that search campaign, right? And Google says it takes it to the next level. It uses Google's AI, which is at this point is at very high level. And the expansion happens in two different levels, so to say. One level is search term matching. So essentially, when you enable this in a standard search campaign, what happens is that Google can go after or you can serve ads on keywords that are not included in your campaign, but keywords that Google thinks are similar or potentially could lead into decent conversion performance, right? So, and you can see those keywords if you go to Google, if you go to the search report, and if you filter by match type, you'll see this AI Max there, which basically means that in this campaign, brand US, thanks to the AI Max expansion, the ads also appear on this particular search term, which we don't have in that campaign. It's just because the AI Max expansion is on, and because this keyword is similar to either the content of the website or some of the keywords that we have in the campaign, Google served the ad on that keyword. And as you rightly guessed, in ad grants accounts that often suffer from low grant utilization, this can give you an extra competitive edge, right? You can go broadly after all those keywords related to what you have in there. From our experience, it helps. I mean, obviously the results vary on your program, on the search volume, on how competitive the keywords are, etc. But you know, most of the times when we actually reviewed the keywords that were matched thanks to AI Max, they were quite relevant. So we rarely see irrelevant matches. So our recommendation is to use this. And outside of the targeting element, you also get asset optimization, and you can choose if you let Google to customize your texts and or final URLs. So what this means, if you check the first box, it means that Google can actually slightly modify your ad copies, right? So what it means is if Google serves your ad on a keyword that's not included in the ad text, Google can replace some of the headlines with that keyword, for instance, right? Because Google wants to increase the relevancy, Google wants to make the ad more appealing to a particular user. So that's one thing that you can do using AI Max. The second thing you can do is final URL expansion. So yeah, on an ad level, you define the landing page, right? But sometimes Google might see that there is another page that might be more relevant, and if that happens, it can also replace the URL that you've manually used in this ad, right? And it might sound a little bit scary because it might sound like you do not have full control over the ads that get served to people. Luckily, there is a way to see what kind of assets were created this way. You have a high level of control over the keywords because you see all the keywords. You can negative match keywords. So if you see something irrelevant, you can say, okay, never ever show the ads again on this keyword. You can do the same with the ad copies. You can take a look at the report where you see all the variations that were served. And again, if there's something completely irrelevant, you can adjust it, or you can even completely uncheck one of these boxes, which means that it will not adjust the text anymore, for instance, right? All right, so that's AI Max. Again, in a nutshell, our recommendation is to use these new AI-powered features, experiment with AI Max, and definitely try dynamic campaigns and performance max campaigns. Performance max campaigns, in effect, are in most of the accounts where we're testing it, they're one of the biggest campaigns in the account at this point of time, right? So also for fundraising, especially at those early stages, great campaign format. We definitely recommend using it. Another new thing that happened very recently, this only happened um, about a month ago, I guess, is what we call an expansion in the list of donation platforms. So what I mean by that, if you remember, in the past, the way Google Ad Grants worked is that you could only promote this one domain, right? The domain that you submitted during the Ad Grants application, that so-called primary domain, that's the domain that Google looked at during the application process, and it was the only one that you could promote. Which basically means that if you use a third-party platform to collect donations, you had to embed that donation form somehow within your domain because you could not take people anywhere else than your domain. So the form had to be included within your page. Yes, there were a few exceptions. There were 2 or 3 platforms that were allowed by Google even in prior years, but luckily Google decided to expand this list. This list. So from this year on, and I have a full list here. From this year on, all of these domains are automatically allowed for against advertisers to advertise on. So what I mean by that is coming back here. If in the past, let's say this is your website, right? You see in this blue frame, there's a donation this donation form that's embedded from a third party, you had to have it like this, right? So it had to be embedded within your domain. But now, let's say you use classy.org, you use their donation engine. Now you can run a campaign that takes people straight to Classy. They do not need to go to your domain. You can create your branded page within Classy, and ads can link straight there, which obviously shortens the conversion path. It simplifies it. It makes it easier for people to convert. So we very much appreciate this step, and I think it can. I mean, it's a tiny thing, but it can do a lot for many organizations running these fundraising campaigns within Google Ad Grants. And you can find the list on Google Ad Grants website as well. One challenge here, especially when people go from your domain to a third-party domain, is analytics, right? Because obviously on your own domain, Google Analytics is there, you see what's happening. You can fairly easily implement conversion tracking, and you can evaluate the campaign performance. If people go from your domain to a third-party domain, or if they straight land on the third-party domain, how do you track it? Well, majority of these platforms let you implement Google Analytics within their platform, and then over there you can just turn on, like measure conversions or something like that, which basically means that every time a conversion happens within their platform, they will send this information into your Google Analytics. So this part of the problem is actually not a problem in most of these platforms. The problematic part could be when people go from your domain to this third-party domain. That's a situation that we call cross-domain tracking situation, and that can cause some problems. We have a whole webinar about Google Analytics where we talk about this problem. But long story short, how you can solve that is either you can track how many people click on the donation button, which is the last touch they make on your domain. So you can track that, which obviously doesn't give you full information, but that works. I mean, it's better than nothing. Or you can track when people come back to your page and visit your thank you page, right? But ideally, you should integrate your Google Analytics within this third-party donation platform, and you should use UTM parameters so that this Google Analytics tracker implemented on that domain knows that this particular user came from this website and or from this campaign. That's an elegant solution. When you use these parameters, then Google Analytics will know where this person came from and will attribute those conversions correctly. Again, we don't have time to go into this too much today. We have a whole webinar on Google Analytics where we describe this in more detail. All right, what are the other channels for fundraising? Again, there's obviously a variety of different ones. But I would just like to cover today those ones that we've tested with our clients and those ones that where we've seen decent performance. The first one is YouTube. Obviously, YouTube advertising is part of Google Ads, so you can configure those within commercial Google Ads accounts. Um, and the the format that I would particularly recommend is this one here in the corner. It's called pre-roll videos. So these are short video ads that serve within actual videos. They're very cheap. So for a completed view, which is typically the first 30 seconds of a video, the cost per completed view could be between, or typically is between 1 to 2 cents in the US. So you can, in an inexpensive way, you can accumulate fairly, and obviously the traffic is huge. So you can quickly accumulate a fairly large number of video views, and especially in those early stages of the fundraising campaign, especially if you work with some emotional topics. We have clients that, for instance, build wells in Africa, and they always just share stories of kids that see tangible benefits from their work, etc. And they talk about the work, things like this, right? If you work with it you know emotionally touching topic like that, we definitely recommend using videos, especially in those early stages. And like I said, it's inexpensive. You can quickly accumulate traction, and then you can sort of follow up on that with display campaigns and then search and retargeting. So in those early stages, video via YouTube is a highly recommended channel. The next one that we can definitely recommend is Meta. Again, for most of you, this is not something they wouldn't know about. You probably also know that there are um, four, let's say, apps or 4 different tools included in Meta's portfolio, and that's Facebook, that's Instagram, that's Facebook Messenger, and that's WhatsApp. You can control ads in all of those 4 platforms from within one Meta Business Manager, which is great. Um, and obviously, for those of you who have a decent following on social media platforms, this could be a good channel because you can retarget to people who follow you on social media. You can specifically go after people who had engagement with your Facebook pages, etc., etc. And again, we could have a separate webinar or two about this. But again, as an inspiration, especially if you have decent following on social media, um, running a small meta campaign next to Google Ads campaigns can be a very good supplement, and that way you can really go after people no matter where they are, right? Because people spend a lot of time on Google's properties or Meta properties. So if you use both, you really maximize your exposure. Another channel that we use, and that's why we can recommend it to you as well, is LinkedIn, especially for B2B donations, corporate donations. If you want to reach out to executives, if you want to reach out to high net worth individuals, etc., many of them are on LinkedIn. And, on LinkedIn, you can use 2 types of advertising. One is via Sales Navigator, where you essentially filter people based on their many different metrics, based on where they work, based on who they are, based on their, I don't know, position, etc. And then you can send them so-called emails, right? So messages, or introduce yourself, your organization, where you solicit donations, or where you ask them for any kind of support. And you can really pinpoint those decision makers, people who are likely to make decisions about ECG, about PR, and people like that. Um, Another format that you can use within LinkedIn is obviously LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn ads come in a variety of different formats. Could be you can use single image ads, just the one here in the middle. You can use carousel ads with multiple pictures, video ads, so-called spotlight ads, etc. Um, our experience with this is that they're quite expensive. Again, the targeting wise, especially if you go after B2B audiences, they're great. No other platform has such detailed B2B data, but they can be quite expensive in terms of cost per 1,000 impressions, and also in terms of cost per click. They can easily go $5 plus per click easily. So it really only makes sense to run them on very specific audiences, narrow audiences, comprised of people who are very likely to convert, right? But again, in terms of targeting capabilities, there's nothing like this. So if you are in if you're trying to reach out to very specific high net worth individuals and decision makers, this could be a good format, especially when supplemented with those direct messages sent via LinkedIn Sales Navigator. This is a brand new thing. We are actually just piloting this with one of our clients. And it's ads in AI chatbots, right? Obviously, the major chatbots like ChatGPT or Gemini, etc. As of now, they do not support ads, and if they will, this will be done via their own um, advertising platforms. But there are thousands of different chatbots, and cumulatively, traffic in those secondary and tertiary chatbots, if you will, uh, cumulatively, this is a huge market. There are millions, well, probably hundreds of millions of people using these other smaller chatbots on a daily basis. And there are tools and platforms. This one is called context.io, but there are different platforms like that through which you can serve ads within those chatbots. And here's an example of that. This is a question that somebody asks to this chatbot: what percentage of people in the world don't have access to basic necessities? And you can see that here's in the bottom part, that's the actual answer. But on the very top, as you can see here, sponsored, that's an ad, right? And the ad is served on contextual basis, and it doesn't look like an ad. It's just a text that in partially answers the question, right? Where it says, in situations where access to basic necessities like clean water is limited, every contribution counts. Consider joining, etc., etc., etc. Right? So it's actually a donation ad that looks like a naturally generated um, answer in natural language, but it is actually is an ad that served contextually. And like I said, this one, the platform that served this ad is called Context.io. That's the one that we're piloting right now, but there are different ones. And so, yeah, if you think that this might be a good addition, it's a brand new thing. Many of these platforms offer free pilots. It's inexpensive, and again, you can reach new audiences, Gen Z, younger audiences. Is a great way. So do your research, try it. We don't. I mean, again, we've only been running this for a few weeks, so we don't have conclusive amount of data yet. But given the price, this seems to be a good option. All right, we only have a few minutes left, so I'll try to be quick here. The case study is about the organization that I already mentioned a few times, Galapagos Conservancy. Their goal has been to obviously drive donations, financial donations, as well as animal adoptions, which are in a sense also donations, but in a different form. And this is what their funnel looked like. So to generate the top of the funnel awareness of their programs, we use Google Ad Grants and commercial search, and then we use display and video in a commercial Google Ads account. So that was the top part of the funnel. The middle part was focused search. So we had campaigns specifically going after keywords related to Giving Tuesday, holiday giving, tax deductible giving, etc. And then on the bottom, we had retargeting to close the loop to bring people back. And we used search and display retargeting. This is what their ads look like. These are search ads. I'm only showing you first 3 headlines. But we use so-called responsive ads. So we have multiple headlines and description lines. But the point here is in the left-hand side in the campaign column, you can see that we went after those different audiences. Those are the target groups that I talked about in the beginning. So we had a different ad with monetary donors and then animal lovers and then retargeting most specific ads. And then those different audiences, we try to use the main keywords in the headlines. This is what the banner ads look like. So we use different images. You can see there are 3 different images, but you also see different formats, right? So it can go all the way from traditional banners for desktop. There's a mobile ad, and over here, this is an ad that appears within Google, within Gmail, right? Within emails. And again, if you use responsive display ads, they can come in different shapes and formats. So you upload different images, logos, text, and Google can mix and match them and show different formats like this. And this approach maximizes the exposure. So we recommend using responsive display ads. It is a little bit small, but hopefully you can see that we also did analytics setup, and we had a very detailed conversion tracking setup where we tracked every step of the donation process, right? So you can see when people went to step one, which was selection of payment method, and then step two was basically details, right, where they share their details, and then the third step was the actual payment, right? So all three steps were separate conversion actions, and we also tracked subscriptions, um, you know, contact initiations, etc. So all the events that actually make sense for us to track were tracked within Google Analytics and then synced with all the advertising platforms. And these are the results. The campaign ran back in 2022. We launched it here in late October. Again, you can see the conversions peaked, in the last few days of that year. Clicks peaked during Christmas, right? Again, it's a similar pattern to the one that I've shown you before. And their ads during this, I was actually a little bit less than 2 months. They've generated more than 3 million ad impressions, more than 130,000 visits. Obviously, the banner campaigns, that was the main driver of this traffic. And in terms of donations, 434 people started the donation process and 161 finalized donation process. We also track donation values and calculated the ROI. These data points are confidential, so I don't have them here, but the campaign was positive in terms of ROI. All right. To conclude that, here are our top tips for fundraising campaigns. So prepare early. This is key. I know it's already late October, but there's still enough time. But you should not think about this too much. You should really get started, prepare everything possible within the next few weeks, and then towards the end of November, campaigns should be up and running for you to be able to be there when it counts, which is Thanksgiving, which is Giving Tuesday, which is holidays, or Christmas, and then last few days of the year. Think about a strategy first, right? So this should not be something like, all right, I'm gonna try this and then this and this. No, there should be a clear strategy. You should think about the channels you use. You should prepare the assets and the targeting groups up front, and then um, set up conversion tracking everywhere, and then launch it, and then you will see what works, what doesn't work, and you can make adjustments as you go. Landing pages, very important as well. Test multiple creatives. I've shown you different images, different headlines, different angles, different keywords, right? So I have enough of these. Configure value tracking. That's very important. If you invest real money, if you use commercial accounts, you need to know if it pays off or not. So tracking just the number of conversions is not enough. You should also track conversion value, and use ad grants to highest possible value. This is free money, so use the AI Max expansion, use Performance Max, use dynamic search ads, and try to really go broad, maximize it. But again, think about Google Ad Grants as an entrance, as a way to attract new people, as a way to educate people, and then also have those follow-up commercial campaigns to go after people who visit your website before. And allocate small portion of the budget to experiments, right? I talked about those ads in AI chatbots, talked about LinkedIn, different channels. So my recommendation is to at least 10% of the budget, set it aside, try different things. You might see that some of them work very well, and then you can focus on that and expand the budget and see if you can scale this up. This is an excellent way of learning and taking your strategy to next heights. What you can do outside of Google Ads, what we can recommend, obviously, creating clear and measurable goals. I've given you some examples. Testing new channels, mentioned that. Donor list, right? If you have databases, if you have retargeting audiences, that's your most valuable asset. So if these are substantial, then segment it, and again use different messaging for different parts of the donor list. Leverage Giving Tuesday and those other key days. Talked about that. So do not have the same budget every day. Start with lower budgets and those key days, increase it so you have a little bit more leverage. You can get a little bit more traffic. All right, what else? Social media presence. Maximize your presence organically, but also supplement it with paid campaigns if you have some budget for that. It really pays off to maximize your social media around this time. And get help if you're lost, if this was too much. I know it was a lot of information. I tried to be quick, but this is a very broad topic. If you need help with creating this strategy, running Google AdGrants, maybe adding new channels next to your Google AdGrants campaign, etc., let us know. My email address is here. You also have my phone number here. So if you have any questions, things that were not clear, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be very happy to answer this and schedule one-on-one conversation with you where we can talk about your specific case and how you can um, run retargeting campaigns, or not retargeting campaigns, but fundraising campaigns for your organization. And I see we have one question here. Can you share more about how PMX work? I'll have an example of the signals. That's a great question. As I mentioned, we have a whole webinar just on PMAX. We also have a few blog articles on that topic. I can share them with you. But generally speaking, the signals, um, like I said, these could be keywords. This could also be retargeting audiences. And this could also be like demographics or interest-based signals. And you can create combinations. So you can give, for instance, free signals to Google where you say, I want to go out to people similar to people who visited my website, people who have searched for some of these keywords in the past, and people who are men from 35 to 50, right? You can give multiple different types of signals like this, and then Google's AI tries to process those and tries to serve people that match all of those categories. And again, if you have conversion tracking in place and if you use maximize conversions bidding, then after a while it will see who are the people that actually converted in the past, right? And if it sees that, all right, this signal, which could be the keywords, if it sees, okay, this is a stronger signal, this particular keyword works well, then every time somebody with similar profile searches for some of the keywords in the future, and Google will automatically increase bids to show the ads more prominently to these people, because it knows that based on the historical data, people like this are likely to convert, right? So yeah, I can share more on this with you if you have some time. We can take a look at this together. But yeah, there are, like I said, typically the signals are in forms of keywords, retargeting audiences, and then demographic and or interest targeting. All right, I don't see any other questions here, and the time is up. So thank you again for your attention. That's it. Like I said, we'll send you a link to this recording soon, and we'll also upload it to our YouTube channel, so you can then take a look at it yourself and review all of this at your own pace. Thank you again. Wish you best of luck with your fundraising campaigns, and I hope to see you again on one of our webinars. Thank you. Bye.